The morning sun was bright and warm as Maya stepped out of her car in the bank parking lot. She checked her watch and smiled. It was only 2 in the afternoon, and she had already finished her most important meeting of the day. The investors had loved her business presentation. They were excited about her small bakery that had grown into 3 successful locations across the city. Maya looked at herself in the car mirror one last time. Her navy blue suit was neat and professional. Her hair was pulled back in a simple bun. She grabbed her leather handbag and walked toward the bank entrance. Today was payday for her 15 employees, and she needed to withdraw cash to cover their wages and some supply costs for the bakeries. The bank lobby was busy when she walked in. Tuesday afternoons were always like this. People on their lunch breaks, retired folks doing their banking, and business owners like herself taking care of money matters. Maya counted about 12 people waiting in line ahead of her. She didn't mind the wait. She pulled out her phone and started answering emails from her bakery managers. The line moved slowly but steadily. Maya watched as the 3 tellers behind the counter helped one customer after another. There was a young man with red hair who seemed new and nervous. Next to him was an older woman with glasses hanging on a chain around her neck. She looked like she had worked there for many years. The 3rd teller was a middle-aged woman with short blonde hair and a tight expression on her face. She wore a name tag, but Maya was too far away to read it. Maya thought about all the things she needed to do after the bank. She had to drop off the payroll money at her main bakery location. Then she needed to visit her newest shop to check on the renovation work. Her phone buzzed with a text from her head baker asking about flour orders. Maya quickly typed a response telling him she would handle it this afternoon. 20 minutes passed, and finally it was Maya's turn. The blonde teller with the tight expression waved her forward to window number 2. Maya put her phone in her purse and walked up to the counter with a friendly smile. She had been banking here for 5 years, ever since she opened her first bakery. She knew some of the staff by face, though she couldn't remember if she had ever worked with this particular teller before. "Good afternoon," Maya said pleasantly. She placed her withdrawal slip on the counter along with her driver's license and debit card. "I need to make a withdrawal from my business account, please." The teller looked at Maya, then down at the withdrawal slip. Her expression didn't change. She didn't smile or greet Maya back. Instead, she picked up the slip and examined it closely, holding it up to the light as if checking for something wrong with it. Maya found this odd but said nothing. Maybe the woman was just having a bad day. The teller typed something into her computer, her fingers hitting the keys harder than necessary. She stared at the screen for a long moment, her eyes narrowing. Then she looked back at Maya, and something in her gaze made Maya uncomfortable. It wasn't the normal look of a bank employee helping a customer. It was suspicious. It was cold. "This is a large amount," the teller said flatly. It wasn't a question. It was almost an accusation. Maya nodded, keeping her smile in place. "Yes, it's for my business payroll and some operating expenses. I make similar withdrawals twice a month." The teller didn't respond right away. She looked at the withdrawal slip again, then at Maya's identification, then back at her computer screen. The silence stretched out uncomfortably. Maya could feel the people in line behind her shifting impatiently. She heard someone cough. Another person whispered something she couldn't quite hear. "Your account shows some unusual activity," the teller finally said, her voice louder than necessary. Several people nearby turned to look. Maya felt her stomach tighten. "I'm sorry, what do you mean?" "I use this account regularly for my business. Everything should be in order." The teller's lips pressed into a thin line. "I'll need to ask you some questions before I can process this withdrawal." Maya's professional smile wavered slightly. She had withdrawn money from this account dozens of times before. No one had ever questioned her like this. "Of course," she said, trying to stay calm. "What do you need to know?" "Where did this money come from?" the teller asked, her voice sharp and clear. More heads turned in the lobby. Maya felt heat rising to her face, but not from embarrassment. It was the beginning of anger mixed with confusion. "It's from my business," Maya explained patiently. "I own 3 bakeries here in the city. The money comes from sales just like it has for the past 5 years I've been banking here." The teller wasn't satisfied. "And what exactly do you need this cash for?" Maya took a deep breath. "As I mentioned, it's for payroll and supplies. I have 15 employees who need to be paid, and I have some vendors who prefer cash payments." "That's a lot of cash to carry around," the teller said, her tone dripping with suspicion. Why not use checks or electronic transfers like normal businesses? The word normal hit Maya like a slap. She glanced around the lobby and noticed that several customers were openly staring now. An elderly man near the door frowned at her. A woman with 2 small children pulled them closer as if Maya was dangerous. The security guard near the entrance had turned his full attention to her window. Maya's hands gripped the edge of the counter. She forced herself to speak calmly and clearly. Some of my employees don't have bank accounts, and some of my suppliers are small family businesses that prefer cash. This is completely legal and normal for small business operations. The teller made a sound that was almost a snort. She picked up Maya's identification card and held it at arm's length, studying it as if she'd never seen a driver's license before. "This doesn't look like you," she said suddenly. Maya's mouth fell open. "Excuse me? That's my valid driver's license. The photo was taken 2 years ago." "Your hair is different," the teller said, pointing at the photo, then at Maya. "I'm wearing my hair up today," Maya said, her voice rising slightly despite her efforts to stay calm. "In the photo, it's down." "That's the same person. That's me." The teller set the license down but didn't push it back toward Maya. "I'm going to need to verify some things. Please wait here." "Wait, what do you need to verify?" Maya asked, but the teller had already turned away. She walked toward the back office area, carrying Maya's withdrawal slip and identification with her. Maya stood at the counter, frozen in disbelief. Behind her, she heard muttering. Someone in line complained about the wait. Another voice said something about suspicious people that made Maya's blood run cold. She turned around and saw the line of customers behind her. Some looked annoyed at the delay. Others looked at her with open distrust. A man in a business suit shook his head and moved to a different line. Maya felt like she was on display, like an animal in a zoo or a criminal in a lineup. She had done nothing wrong. She was simply trying to withdraw money from her own account. Money she had earned through years of hard work and long hours building her business from nothing. Maya pulled out her phone and checked the time. She had been standing at this counter for almost 10 minutes now. Her employees would be waiting for their paychecks. She had meetings scheduled for later this afternoon. This should have been a simple 15-minute stop at the bank. Instead, it was turning into something she didn't understand, something that felt deeply wrong. Maya stood at the counter for what felt like forever. She checked her phone again. 15 minutes had passed since the teller walked away. The woman still hadn't come back. Maya looked around the bank lobby and saw that the other 2 tellers were still helping customers. The line she had been in was now being directed to other windows. People who had been behind her were now finishing their transactions and leaving. But Maya was stuck, waiting with no explanation. She tried to catch the eye of the young red-haired teller, but he was busy with an older gentleman cashing a check. The other teller, the woman with glasses, glanced at Maya once but quickly looked away. Maya felt invisible and exposed at the same time. She was standing in the middle of a busy bank with nothing to do but wait, and everyone could see her waiting. It felt like punishment, though she had committed no crime. Maya's phone buzzed. It was her head baker again, asking when she would arrive with the payroll. She texted back a quick message saying she was delayed at the bank. Another text came through from her newest employee, a single mother who desperately needed her paycheck to pay rent. Maya's chest tightened with frustration. These people depended on her, and she was being held up for no good reason. Finally, the blonde teller emerged from the back office. But she wasn't alone. Walking beside her was a tall man in a dark suit. He had salt and pepper hair combed back from his forehead, and a stern face that looked like it rarely smiled. He wore a badge that identified him as Thomas Wright, assistant manager. The teller pointed at Maya, and the man's eyes locked onto her immediately. They approached the counter together, but neither of them looked friendly or apologetic for the long wait. The teller stood slightly behind the assistant manager, her arms crossed over her chest. The assistant manager placed Maya's withdrawal slip and identification on the counter, but didn't push them toward her. Instead, he kept his hand on them as if she might try to grab them and run. "Ma'am," the assistant manager said, his voice formal and cold, "we need to discuss some concerns about your account before we can process this withdrawal." Maya felt her patience slipping. "What concerns? I've been banking here for 5 years without any problems. My account is in good standing. I don't understand what this is about." The assistant manager's expression didn't change. "We have policies and procedures we must follow. when we see certain red flags in account activity. Your account has shown several large deposits and withdrawals over recent months. Yes, because I run a successful business, Maya said, her voice firmer now. That's what business accounts do. Money comes in from sales and money goes out for expenses. There's nothing unusual about that. The amounts are significant, the teller chimed in from behind the assistant manager, and the patterns are irregular. Maya couldn't believe what she was hearing. Irregular? My bakeries are busier some weeks than others. We have seasonal fluctuations. We cater events. Of course, the amounts vary. That's completely normal for a retail food business. The assistant manager held up his hand as if to silence her. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step over to my desk so we can discuss this privately. You're holding up the line. Maya looked behind her. There was no line at her window anymore. Everyone had been redirected to the other tellers. She was the only customer in this section of the bank. There is no line, she said quietly. Nevertheless, the assistant manager said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Please follow me. He didn't wait for her response. He simply turned and walked toward a desk positioned in the corner of the lobby. It wasn't a private office. It was a desk in full view of everyone in the bank. Maya had no choice but to follow him, her heels clicking loudly on the marble floor. She felt every eye in the building watching her. The security guard near the door adjusted his position to have a better view of where she was going. Maya sat down in the chair across from the assistant manager's desk. He sat down slowly, arranging Maya's documents in front of him like he was preparing for an interrogation. The blonde teller hovered nearby, standing with her arms still crossed, watching everything. Maya set her purse on her lap and folded her hands to keep them from shaking. She wasn't scared. She was angry, but she knew she had to keep her composure. Now then, the assistant manager began, pulling out a notepad and pen. Let's start with some basic questions. What is the nature of your business? I own 3 bakeries, Maya answered, her jaw tight. I've already explained this to your teller. My business is called Sweet Success Bakery. We make fresh bread, pastries, and custom cakes. We've been operating for 5 years. The assistant manager wrote something down. And how did you obtain the capital to start this business? Maya blinked. I'm sorry, what does that have to do with today's withdrawal? Just answer the question, please. Maya took a slow breath. I used my savings from working 2 jobs for 3 years. I also took out a small business loan, which I paid back in full 2 years ago. Everything is documented with the Small Business Administration if you need to verify it. And these large deposits into your account, the assistant manager continued, ignoring her offer of documentation. Where exactly is that money coming from? From customers buying baked goods, Maya said, her voice rising slightly. From people purchasing birthday cakes and wedding cakes. From our daily bread sales. From catering orders. That's where the money comes from. It's a bakery. People pay money and we give them food. This isn't complicated. The teller stepped forward. The deposits are often in cash. Large amounts of cash. Maya turned to look at her. Yes, because people pay with cash. Especially at my original location, which is in a neighborhood where many people prefer to use cash. There's nothing illegal about cash payments. The assistant manager made another note. Do you have business licenses for all 3 locations? Of course I do, Maya snapped. I have every permit, every license, every inspection certificate required by the city and county. My businesses are completely legitimate and legal. I pay my taxes. I follow all health and safety regulations. I don't understand why I'm being questioned like this. We're just following procedure, the assistant manager said, but his tone suggested he didn't believe her. Now about today's withdrawal. You're requesting a large sum in cash. What specifically do you need this cash for? Maya had already answered this question twice, but she forced herself to explain again. It's payday. I have 15 employees who need their wages. Some of them don't have bank accounts, so I pay them in cash. It's legal. I report everything to the IRS. I withhold taxes properly. I have an accountant who handles all of this. Additionally, I need some cash for supply purchases from vendors who prefer cash payment. Why would legitimate vendors prefer cash? The teller asked suspiciously. Because some of them are small family businesses or farms, Maya explained, trying to keep her voice level. They're older people who've always done business in cash. They supply me with specialty flowers, local honey, fresh fruit. They're not set up for credit cards or electronic payments. This is completely normal in the food service industry. The assistant manager leaned back in his chair, studying Maya with an expression that made her skin crawl. It was the look of someone who had already decided she was guilty of something. Do you have documentation for these employees? Pay stubs, tax forms? Yes, of course, Maya said. Everything is properly documented. I can provide W-2 forms, payroll records, whatever you need to see, but I shouldn't have to prove my innocence when I haven't done anything wrong. I'm a customer in good standing trying to access my own money. Ma'am, please don't raise your voice, the assistant manager said, though Maya had barely raised her voice at all. I'm not raising my voice, Maya replied, but she could feel her control slipping. I'm frustrated because I've been here for almost 40 minutes now, and no one has given me a legitimate reason why I can't withdraw money from my own account. The assistant manager and the teller exchanged a look. Something passed between them, some unspoken agreement. The assistant manager turned back to Maya. The thing is, we have reason to believe there may be fraudulent activity on this account. Maya felt like she'd been slapped. Fraudulent activity? What are you talking about? I'm the only person who accesses this account. I'm the business owner. I make every deposit and every withdrawal. How could there be fraud? We're not accusing you of anything, the assistant manager said, though his tone absolutely suggested otherwise. We're simply saying we need to investigate before we can release these funds. It's for your protection as well as the bank's. This is ridiculous, Maya said, her hands gripping the arms of her chair. I want to speak to the branch manager. Right now. The assistant manager shook his head slowly. The branch manager is unavailable at the moment. He's in meetings all afternoon. You'll have to deal with me. Then call him out of his meeting, Maya insisted. This is important. You're essentially accusing me of being a criminal without any evidence. I've already told you he's unavailable. The assistant manager repeated, his voice hardening. Now here's what's going to happen. We're going to place a temporary hold on your account while we conduct an investigation into these irregularities. This is standard procedure when we suspect fraud. Maya stood up so quickly her chair scraped loudly against the floor. Maya looked around the bank lobby and realized that everyone was watching her now. The quiet conversations had stopped. People were openly staring. A woman near the entrance whispered something to her husband, and they both looked at Maya with suspicious eyes. The security guard had moved closer, his hand resting near his belt. Maya felt like she was in a spotlight, like every person in the building had decided she was dangerous or dishonest. This isn't right, Maya said, her voice shaking now. I haven't done anything wrong. You can't treat me like this. The assistant manager crossed his arms. Ma'am, if you continue to cause a disturbance, I'll have to ask security to escort you from the building. A disturbance? Maya repeated, her voice cracking. I'm standing here asking to access my own money. That's not a disturbance. That's banking. That's what people do at banks. The blonde teller stepped forward, her face twisted in an expression of disgust. Maybe you should just leave and come back when you can provide proper documentation for all these suspicious transactions. I can provide documentation right now, Maya said desperately. She opened her purse and pulled out a folder she always kept with her important business papers. Her hands trembled as she set it on the desk. Here, business licenses for all 3 locations. My latest tax return. My business insurance policy. Bank statements from the past year. Everything you could possibly need to verify that my business is legitimate. The assistant manager barely glanced at the papers. These will need to be verified by our fraud department. As I said, you should come back in a few days. Maya felt something break inside her. She had been patient. She had been polite. She had answered every insulting question they'd thrown at her. She had provided documentation, and still, they were treating her like a criminal. She looked at the assistant manager's smug face, at the teller's cold eyes, and suddenly she understood. This wasn't about bank policy or suspicious activity. This was about something else entirely. This was about the color of her skin. You're doing this because I'm black, Maya said quietly. The words hung in the air like smoke. The entire lobby seemed to freeze. You saw a black woman trying to withdraw a large amount of cash and you immediately assumed I was doing something illegal. The assistant manager's face flushed red. That's absolutely not true. This has nothing to do with race. This is about following bank procedures. Really? Maya asked, her voice growing stronger even as tears began to roll down her cheeks. How many white business owners have you questioned like this today? How many white customers have you made wait for 45 minutes before refusing their withdrawal? How many white people have you accused of fraud without any evidence? Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice, the assistant manager said. looking around nervously at all the watching customers. "No," Maya said firmly. "No, I won't lower my voice. I want everyone here to know what you're doing. I want everyone to see how you're treating me." She pulled out her phone from her purse. Her hands were still shaking, but she managed to open the camera app. She turned on the video recording and pointed it at the assistant manager and the teller. Both of them immediately took a step back. "What are you doing?" the teller asked, her voice sharp with alarm. "I'm recording this," Maya said, her voice clear and steady now despite the tears on her face. "I'm recording how I came into this bank to make a routine withdrawal from my business account. How I was questioned and interrogated, how I was treated like a criminal, how you refused to give me access to my own money, how you threatened to freeze my account, how you accused me of fraud with no evidence. I'm recording all of it." "You can't record in here," the assistant manager sputtered. "It's against bank policy." "I absolutely can record in here," Maya shot back. "This is a public space and I'm documenting discrimination. This is legal and you know it." The assistant manager looked at the teller, then at the security guard, clearly unsure what to do. Other customers had started pulling out their own phones. Some were recording. Others were taking pictures. The situation was spiraling beyond his control, and Maya could see the panic starting to show on his face. "I'm a business owner," Maya said into her phone's camera, making sure to capture everything. "I own 3 successful bakeries in this city. I've been banking at this branch for 5 years. I came in today to withdraw money for my employee payroll and business expenses. This teller," she turned the camera toward the blonde woman, "began interrogating me about where my money came from. She suggested my account activity was suspicious. She took my identification and made me wait for over 30 minutes while other customers were served around me." The teller tried to turn away from the camera, but Maya kept recording. "Then this assistant manager," she turned the camera to him, "brought me to this desk in full view of everyone in the bank. He questioned me about my business. He asked where I got the money to start my bakery. He implied that my cash deposits were somehow illegal. He asked invasive questions about my employees and my vendors. And when I asked to speak to the branch manager, he refused. He said the manager was unavailable. He then threatened to freeze my account and told me to leave." "That's enough," the assistant manager said, reaching toward Maya's phone as if to grab it. Maya pulled back quickly. "Don't touch me. Don't touch my phone. I have every right to record this." A voice from across the lobby called out. "She's right. She can record." Maya turned and saw an elderly black man standing near the ATM machines. He was looking at the assistant manager with disgust. "I've been banking here for 30 years and I've seen this before. You people never change." A younger woman near the entrance spoke up too. "I was standing in line behind her. I saw the whole thing. That teller was rude to her from the very beginning. She didn't treat any of the other customers that way." The assistant manager held up his hands. "Everyone please calm down. This is a private matter between the bank and this customer." "It stopped being private when you embarrassed her in front of everyone," another voice said. It was the man who had been cashing a check at the other window. "You made it public. You made all of us witnesses." Maya felt a surge of gratitude toward these strangers who were speaking up for her. She wasn't alone. Other people had seen what happened. They understood. The assistant manager and the teller were looking around nervously now, realizing that the situation had turned against them. "I want to see the branch manager," Maya said again, her voice firm. "Not in a few days. Not next week. Right now, I want to speak to whoever is in charge of this branch immediately." "As I've told you, he's in meetings," the assistant manager repeated, but his voice had lost its authority. He sounded uncertain now. "Then interrupt his meeting," Maya demanded, "because I'm not leaving this bank until I speak with him. And if you try to have me removed by security, I will make sure this video is seen by every news outlet in the city. I will make sure everyone knows how this bank treats black customers." The assistant manager's face went pale. He looked at the teller who had backed away toward the safety of the teller counter. He looked at the growing crowd of customers who were all watching him with varying degrees of sympathy for Maya and anger at the bank. He looked at the phones recording everything. He had made a terrible miscalculation and he knew it. "I'll go check if the manager can step out," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You do that," Maya said, still recording. She kept her phone up and steady, documenting everything. The assistant manager walked quickly toward the back offices, almost running, The blonde teller had disappeared completely, probably hiding in the break room. Maya stood there in the middle of the bank lobby, tears still wet on her face but her head held high. The elderly black man who had spoken up earlier approached her carefully. "Are you all right, young lady?" he asked kindly. Maya nodded, though she wasn't entirely sure that was true. "Thank you for speaking up. Thank you for seeing what was happening. I've seen it too many times before," the old man said sadly. "My son went through something similar at a different bank last year. They accused him of depositing a fake check when he tried to cash his paycheck from his engineering job. They called the police on him, all because a black man had a check for $5,000. Maya felt sick. This wasn't just happening to her. This was a pattern. This was a system. The woman who had been standing behind her in line came over too. "I'm so sorry," she said. "What they did to you was wrong." Completely wrong. More customers approached, offering words of support. Not everyone, Maya noticed. Some people had quietly left the bank, probably uncomfortable with the confrontation. Others kept their distance, still looking at Maya with suspicion. But enough people had seen the truth. Enough people cared. And that gave Maya the strength to keep standing there, to keep recording, to keep demanding the justice she deserved. Her phone buzzed with messages. Her employees were worried about their paychecks. Her accountant was asking if everything was okay. Her mother was calling, probably sensing somehow that something was wrong. But Maya ignored all of it. She kept her camera on, kept recording the empty desk where the assistant manager had interrogated her, kept documenting the bank tellers avoiding eye contact, kept capturing the security guard who looked increasingly uncomfortable with his role in this situation. She had come here to make a simple withdrawal. She had been treated like a criminal. And now, she was going to make sure that everyone who worked at this bank understood that their actions had consequences. Maya stood in the center of the bank lobby, her phone still recording, waiting for the branch manager to appear. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The assistant manager had disappeared into the back offices, and there was no sign of him returning. The blonde teller had vanished completely. The other two tellers were still working at their windows, but they kept their eyes down, refusing to look in Maya's direction. The small group of customers who had supported Maya remained nearby. The elderly black man sat down on one of the benches along the wall, clearly planning to stay until this was resolved. The woman who had been in line behind Maya stood with her arms crossed, occasionally shaking her head in disgust at what she had witnessed. A few other people lingered, some out of genuine concern and others probably just curious to see what would happen next. Maya's arms were getting tired from holding up her phone, but she didn't lower it. She had learned from watching other videos of discrimination that the moment you stopped recording was often the moment things got worse. The video was her protection, her proof, her weapon against lies and denial. Finally, the assistant manager emerged from the back hallway. But he wasn't alone, and he wasn't bringing the branch manager. Instead, he was accompanied by 2 police officers. Maya's heart jumped into her throat. The officers wore dark blue uniforms with badges that gleamed under the lobby lights. One was a tall white man with a thick mustache. The other was a shorter Latino officer with sharp, observant eyes. "That's her," the assistant manager said, pointing at Maya. "She's been causing a disturbance and refusing to leave the premises." Maya felt the blood drain from her face, but she kept her phone up and recording. "I haven't been causing a disturbance," she said clearly, making sure her voice was captured on the video. "I came here to withdraw money from my business account and I was discriminated against. I have every right to be here. I'm a customer of this bank." The tall officer approached first, his hand resting on his belt near his equipment. "Ma'am, we've received a complaint that you're trespassing and disturbing the peace. We're going to need you to put your phone away and step outside with us." "I'm not trespassing," Maya said, her voice shaking but strong. "I'm a customer. I've been banking here for 5 years. I came in to make a legal transaction, and these employees refused to serve me. They interrogated me, accused me of fraud without evidence, and threatened to freeze my account. All because I'm black." The shorter officer looked at the assistant manager, then back at Maya. "Is that true? You're a customer here?" "Yes," Maya said. "Check their computer system. My name is Maya Johnson. I have both a business account and a personal account at this branch. I've never had any problems before today." The assistant manager shifted uncomfortably. "She does have accounts here, but we have concerns about suspicious activity." We were following standard fraud prevention procedures. What suspicious activity? The elderly black man called out from his bench. I've been sitting here for 20 minutes and I haven't seen this young woman do anything suspicious. What I saw was your employees treating her like a criminal for no good reason. The woman who had been in line spoke up too. I was standing behind her. I saw how that teller treated her from the start. It was disrespectful and discriminatory. The tall police officer held up his hand. Okay, everyone calm down. Let's sort this out one at a time. He looked at Maya. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to lower your phone. No, Maya said firmly. I'm legally allowed to record in a public space. This is my protection. I'm documenting everything that's happening here. The officer's expression hardened. I'm not asking. I'm telling you. Lower the phone. She doesn't have to, a voice said. Maya turned and saw a man in an expensive suit standing near the entrance. He was white, probably in his 50s, with silver hair and the confident posture of someone who knew the law. I'm an attorney, and I can confirm that this woman has every legal right to record in a public business. You can't force her to stop, and if you try, she'll have grounds for a lawsuit. The tall officer turned to glare at the attorney. Sir, I need you to step back. This doesn't concern you. Actually, it concerns all of us, the attorney said. This is a public space and we're all witnesses to what's happening here. If you arrest this woman without cause, you'll have a lot of explaining to do. Maya wanted to cry with relief, but she held steady. The shorter police officer seemed less aggressive than his partner. He approached Maya with his hands visible, trying to appear non-threatening. Ma'am, can you just tell me what happened? From the beginning? Maya took a breath and started explaining. She told him about coming to the bank for a routine withdrawal. She described how the teller had immediately been suspicious and hostile. She explained the long wait, the interrogation by the assistant manager, the insulting questions about her business and her income. She talked about being refused service and threatened with an account freeze. The officer listened, occasionally glancing at the assistant manager whose face was growing redder by the minute. Do you have identification? The officer asked. Yes, Maya said. The teller took it and she never gave it back. She turned to look at the assistant manager. Where's my driver's license and debit card? The assistant manager stammered. It's at the teller window. We were processing the verification. For over an hour? Maya asked. It takes an hour to look at a driver's license? The shorter officer walked over to the teller counter. The blonde teller had reappeared, looking nervous and pale. The officer spoke to her quietly, and she handed him Maya's identification cards. He examined them, then brought them back to Maya. These appear to be valid, he said, handing them to her. Maya took them with her free hand, her other hand still holding up her phone. The officer looked at the assistant manager. Sir, can you show me the evidence of suspicious activity on this customer's account? The assistant manager hesitated. Well, it's confidential bank information. I can't just share that with everyone. You can share it with me, the officer said. I'm a police officer investigating a complaint. If there's evidence of fraud, I need to see it. The assistant manager looked trapped. He walked over to the desk where he had interrogated Maya and opened his computer. The officer followed him. Maya couldn't see the screen from where she stood, but she watched the officer's face as he looked at whatever the assistant manager was showing him. After a few minutes, the officer straightened up and turned to face the assistant manager with an expression of disbelief. This is what you called us for? The officer asked. This account shows consistent business deposits and withdrawals over 5 years. I don't see anything suspicious here at all. This looks like a normal, legitimate business account. The assistant manager's mouth opened and closed like a fish. But the amounts, the cash deposits, are completely legal, the officer finished. There's no law against depositing cash. There's no law against running a cash business. Unless you have actual evidence of a crime, which I don't see here, you can't refuse to serve this customer. The tall officer had been standing back, watching everything. Now he stepped forward and addressed the assistant manager. Did you call us because this customer was actually breaking the law? Or did you call us because you wanted us to intimidate her into leaving? The assistant manager didn't answer. He just stood there, his face now pale instead of red, realizing that his plan had completely backfired. The shorter officer turned back to Maya. Ma'am, I apologize for any confusion. You have every right to be here, and you have every right to access your account. This is a civil matter between you and the bank, not a criminal matter. We have no grounds to ask you to leave. Thank you, officer, Maya said, her voice thick with emotion. I appreciate you taking the time to understand the situation. The tall officer didn't look happy, but he nodded in agreement with his partner. Is there anything else we need to address here? Yes, Maya said. I still need to speak with the branch manager. I still need to withdraw my money, and I need these employees to understand that what they did was wrong. The shorter officer looked at the assistant manager. Where's your branch manager? He's in his office, the assistant manager admitted quietly. Upstairs. Then go get him, the officer said. It wasn't a suggestion. It was an order. The assistant manager walked away again, this time moving quickly toward the staircase at the back of the lobby. Maya lowered her phone for a moment to rest her arm, but she kept the recording going. The two police officers stood nearby, making it clear they weren't leaving until this was resolved. The attorney who had spoken up lingered near the entrance, apparently also planning to stay as a witness. More time passed. Maya checked her phone's battery and saw it was getting low. She had been recording for nearly 30 minutes. Her employees had stopped texting, probably realizing something serious was happening. Maya felt exhausted, emotionally drained from the stress and anger and fear of the past hour. But she also felt determined. She wasn't going to let this go. She wasn't going to quietly accept this treatment and pretend it was okay. Finally, a man in his 60s appeared at the top of the staircase. He wore a navy suit and a concerned expression. He descended the stairs quickly and headed straight toward Maya, his hand extended. Ms. Johnson, he said, I'm Richard Morrison, the branch manager. I understand there's been a serious problem this afternoon, and I am deeply sorry for any inconvenience you've experienced. Maya didn't shake his hand. She just looked at him, her phone still recording, and said, Inconvenience? Is that what you call this? Is that what you call discrimination and harassment? The branch manager's hand dropped to his side. He glanced at the police officers, at the watching customers, at the camera in Maya's hand, and his expression changed. This wasn't going to be an easy conversation, and he clearly knew it. Richard Morrison, the branch manager, looked around the lobby at the scene that had unfolded in his bank. He saw the police officers standing near Maya. He saw the customers watching with phones out. He saw his assistant manager standing off to the side, looking like he wanted to disappear. He saw the blonde teller peeking out from behind the counter. And he saw Maya, tears on her face but her jaw set with determination, still recording everything on her phone. Perhaps we should discuss this in my office, the branch manager said, trying to smile, but it came out more like a grimace. No, Maya said firmly. You made this public when your employees humiliated me in front of all these people. We're going to resolve this right here, right now, where everyone can see. The branch manager's smile faded. He nodded slowly. Very well, can you tell me what happened? I'd like to hear your account directly. Maya was tired of telling the story, but she told it again. She explained every detail, from the moment she approached the teller window to the arrival of the police officers. As she spoke, the branch manager's face grew more and more serious. He glanced several times at the assistant manager, who refused to meet his eyes. When Maya finished, there was a long silence in the lobby. I see, the branch manager finally said. That is completely unacceptable. On behalf of this bank, I sincerely apologize for how you were treated today. I don't want an apology, Maya said. I want my money. I want access to my account. And I want to know why this happened. The branch manager turned to the assistant manager. Thomas, bring up Ms. Johnson's account on the computer. Now. The assistant manager hurried to his desk and opened the account. The branch manager walked over and stood behind him, looking at the screen. Maya couldn't see what they were looking at, but she watched the branch manager's face carefully. His expression shifted from serious to surprised, and then to something that looked like horror. This account has been open for 5 years, the branch manager said slowly, his voice carrying across the quiet lobby. The balance is substantial. The transaction history shows consistent business deposits from multiple sources. There are regular payroll withdrawals twice monthly. There are vendor payments. Everything is documented and organized. He turned to look at the assistant manager. Thomas, what exactly did you find suspicious about this account? The assistant manager stammered. The amounts. They were large and irregular. They're not irregular at all, the branch manager said, his voice sharp now. They follow a clear pattern of a successful small business. Busier weeks have higher deposits. Slower weeks have lower deposits. That's completely normal. He scrolled through more screens. I see that Ms. Johnson has never once overdrafted this account. She's never bounced a check. She's never had any suspicious activity flags from our fraud detection system. In fact, according to this, she's one of our premium business customers. She maintains high balances across multiple accounts. The blonde teller shifted uncomfortably. The assistant manager looked at the floor. The branch manager's face was growing, red with anger, but Maya could tell it wasn't directed at her anymore. Let me be very clear, the branch manager said, turning to face Maya again. There is absolutely nothing wrong with your account. There was never any reason to question you or deny your withdrawal. You should have been treated like the valued customer you are. He paused, and Maya could see him choosing his words carefully. I cannot undo what happened here today, but I can ensure it is made right. He walked over to the teller counter and spoke to the young red-haired teller, who had been watching everything with wide eyes. Please process Ms. Johnson's withdrawal immediately, the full amount she requested in cash right now. The young teller nodded quickly and began counting out money from his cash drawer. The branch manager returned to Maya. Your withdrawal is being processed. You'll have your money in just a few minutes. Additionally, I want you to know that I will be conducting a full investigation into what happened here today. This kind of treatment of customers is not acceptable at my branch. With all due respect, Maya said, her voice steady despite the emotion she felt. This isn't just about one bad day at the bank. This is about discrimination. Your employees saw a black woman asking for a large cash withdrawal and they immediately assumed I was doing something illegal. They treated me like a criminal. They called the police on me. Do you think they would have done that if I were white? The branch manager was quiet for a moment. Maya could see him struggling with how to respond. Finally, he said, I don't know, but you're right to raise that question, and I will be asking it during my investigation. It's not a question. The elderly black man on the bench spoke up. It's a fact. I've been banking in this city for 30 years, and I can tell you this happens to black people all the time. We get followed around in stores. We get questioned when we pay with large bills. We get treated with suspicion just for existing while black. Your bank isn't special. This is a pattern. The woman who had supported Maya nodded. I've seen it happen. I'm ashamed I haven't spoken up more in the past when I've witnessed things like this. But I'm speaking up now. What happened to this woman was racist. Plain and simple. The branch manager looked around at the faces watching him. Maya could see he was uncomfortable, but at least he wasn't denying it outright. I hear what you're saying, he said carefully, and I promise you, I will take this seriously. There will be consequences for what happened here today. The young teller returned with several bundles of cash and a withdrawal slip. The branch manager personally brought them over to Maya. Your full withdrawal, as requested. Please count it to make sure it's correct. Maya kept her phone recording with one hand while she quickly counted the money with the other. It was all there. She put the cash into her purse and signed the withdrawal slip. Thank you, she said, though her tone was cold. But this isn't over. I want to know what actions you're going to take against the employees who did this to me. The branch manager glanced at the assistant manager and the blonde teller. I can't discuss personnel matters in public, but I can assure you that appropriate action will be taken. I will also be implementing additional training for all staff on how to treat customers with respect and how to recognize and prevent discrimination. Training isn't enough, Maya said. Your assistant manager called the police on me. He tried to have me arrested for the crime of banking while black. That's not a training issue. That's a character issue. The shorter police officer, who had been standing nearby listening to everything, spoke up. For what it's worth, there was clearly no criminal activity here. The call to us was inappropriate. We'll be noting that in our report. The branch manager nodded. Thank you, officer. And again, Ms. Johnson, I am truly sorry for what you experienced today. I hope you'll give us another chance to serve you properly in the future." Maya looked at him, at the assistant manager still standing by the desk with his head down, at the blonde teller who had started this entire nightmare, at all the customers who had witnessed her humiliation. She thought about coming back to this bank, walking through those doors again, wondering if she would be treated fairly or if she would face more suspicion and harassment. "I don't know if I can," Maya admitted. "I don't know if I can ever feel safe banking here again. Every time I walk in, I'll remember today. I'll remember how your employees made me feel, like I didn't belong, like I was a criminal, like my money wasn't earned legitimately." Her voice broke and fresh tears started falling. "I work so hard. I built my business from nothing. I employ 15 people and provide for their families. I pay my taxes. I follow every law. And still, I get treated like this. I'm so tired of it." The branch manager's face showed genuine distress now. "I understand. I truly do. And I don't blame you if you choose to take your business elsewhere. But I hope you'll consider staying. Not because of anything I can say, but because we need customers like you to hold us accountable. We need your voice to make sure we do better." Maya wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "You want me to keep coming back to a place that hurt me just so I can teach you how not to be racist? That's not my job. That's your job. You're the manager. You should have made sure this never happened in the first place." "You're absolutely right," the branch manager said quietly. "I failed you today. I failed you by not creating a culture in my branch where this kind of behavior would be unthinkable. I failed you by not being present when you needed me. I failed you by having employees who felt it was acceptable to treat you this way. I own all of that." Maya studied his face, trying to determine if he was sincere or just saying what he thought she wanted to hear. She had been lied to and manipulated so many times in her life by people claiming to be allies, claiming to understand, claiming to care. Words were easy. Actions were what mattered. "If you really mean that," Maya said, "then here's what needs to happen. First, your assistant manager and that teller need to be held accountable. Not just a slap on the wrist or a warning. Real consequences. Second, every employee in this bank needs real anti-racism training, not just a 1-hour video they can ignore. Third, you need to review your policies and procedures to figure out how this was allowed to happen. And fourth, you need to make this public. You need to acknowledge publicly that discrimination happened at this branch and tell people what you're doing to fix it." The branch manager took a deep breath. "Those are fair demands. I can't promise everything will happen exactly as you want, because some decisions are above my level. But I promise you I will fight for all of those things. I will push corporate to take this seriously. And I will personally oversee changes at this branch. I want that in writing," Maya said. "I want a written commitment from you and from your corporate office about what actions will be taken. And I want it within 1 week." "You'll have it," the branch manager said. He pulled out his wallet and took out a business card. "This has my direct office line and my email. Please contact me anytime if you have questions or concerns. And again, I am so deeply sorry for what happened to you today." Maya took the business card and put it in her purse with her money. She looked around the lobby one more time. The police officers were preparing to leave. The customers were starting to disperse, though many were still filming or taking photos. The assistant manager had disappeared again. The blonde teller was wiping tears from her own face, though Maya felt no sympathy for her. "I need to go," Maya said. "My employees have been waiting for their paychecks for hours. Because of what happened here, 15 people and their families have been waiting and worrying." "I understand," the branch manager said. "Please drive safely. And please consider my words. I know I can't change what happened today, but I want to do better. This bank wants to do better." Maya nodded but didn't respond. She was done talking. She was done explaining. She was done trying to make people understand something they should have understood from the beginning. Maya sat in her car in the bank parking lot for a long time before she could bring herself to drive away. Her hands were shaking too badly to hold the steering wheel. She felt drained, as if every ounce of energy had been sucked out of her body. The cash was in her purse. The video was saved on her phone. She had gotten what she came for, but it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like surviving something that never should have happened in the first place. She looked at herself in the rearview mirror. Her makeup was ruined from crying. Her eyes were red and puffy. Her professional outfit that had made her feel confident this morning now felt like a costume that had failed to protect her. She had dressed for success, carried herself with dignity, followed all the rules, and still been treated like she didn't belong. Maya started the car and drove to her main bakery location. It was after 4 in the afternoon now. The lunch rush was long over and the space was quiet. Her employees looked up when she walked in, their faces full of concern. They had been texting her for hours, worried about why she was so late with their paychecks. "I'm so sorry," Maya said, her voice hoarse from crying. There was a problem at the bank. Her head baker, a middle-aged man named David who had been with her since the beginning, took one look at her face and immediately became protective. "What kind of problem? Are you okay? Do you need us to call someone?" Maya shook her head. "I'm fine. Well, not fine, but I'm here. Let me pay everyone and then I'll explain." She went into her small office and divided the cash into envelopes for each employee. When she came back out, her whole team had gathered in the kitchen area waiting. She handed out the paychecks and saw the relief on faces of people who depended on this money for rent, for food, for their families. The guilt she felt for making them wait crushed her even more. After everyone had their pay, Maya told them what happened at the bank. As she spoke, she watched anger and recognition cross the faces of her employees. More than half of her team were people of color. They understood immediately what had happened without her needing to explain the racism underneath it all. They had their own stories of being followed in stores, questioned by police, treated with suspicion in places where white people moved freely. "That's messed up," said one of her youngest employees, a 19-year-old girl named Lisa. "You literally own 3 businesses and they treated you like a criminal?" "I can't believe they called the police on you," David said, shaking his head. "That could have gone so much worse. People have been hurt or killed for less." Maya knew he was right. She had been terrified when those officers walked in, even though she had done nothing wrong. The fear that came from being a black person facing the police was something she had lived with her entire life. The relief she felt when the officers had actually listened to her, actually looked at the evidence, actually treated her fairly, was tinged with the sad knowledge that things could have gone very differently. "What are you going to do?" asked Maria, one of her bakers who had immigrated from Mexico 5 years ago. "Are you going to sue them?" "I don't know yet," Maya admitted. "Right now I just need to rest and think." But that evening, as Maya sat in her apartment scrolling through her phone, she couldn't stop thinking about the video. It was saved in her photos. Over 30 minutes of footage showing everything that had happened. She watched parts of it again, seeing herself through the camera's eye. She saw her pain. She saw her strength. She saw the discrimination playing out in real time. Maya thought about the branch manager's request to handle things quietly. She thought about how many times black people were told to be patient, to give people a chance, to not make a scene. She thought about all the times she had stayed silent when facing smaller acts of discrimination because she didn't want to be seen as angry or difficult or overly sensitive. But this time felt different. This time she had evidence. This time she had witnesses. This time she had a platform to speak from as a successful business owner. And this time she decided she wasn't going to stay silent. Maya opened her social media accounts and began to write. She kept it simple and factual. She explained what happened without exaggeration or emotional language. She stated the facts clearly. Then she uploaded the video. Before she hit the post button, she hesitated for just a moment. Once this was out in the world, there would be no taking it back. Her face, her name, her story would be public. She would face criticism and trolls and people who would try to justify what happened to her. But she would also be heard, and maybe, just maybe, she could prevent this from happening to someone else. Maya hit post. Within an hour, the video had hundreds of views. Within 2 hours, thousands. By the time Maya went to bed that night, the video had been shared hundreds of times. When she woke up the next morning, it had gone viral. Over 1 million views, tens of thousands of comments, hundreds of shares. News outlets were requesting interviews. Social media influencers were reposting it with commentary. The hashtag justice for the bank customer was trending. Maya's phone wouldn't stop ringing. She had messages from reporters, from activists, from lawyers offering to represent her, from other people sharing their own stories of discrimination at banks. She had supportive messages from strangers around the world. She also had hateful messages from people who accused her of playing the race card, of making things up, of attacking innocent bank employees just trying to do their jobs. The news coverage started that afternoon. Local news stations ran the story. Then regional outlets picked it up. By the evening news, it was national. Major networks showed clips of Maya's video, interviewed civil rights experts about banking discrimination, discussed the broader pattern of black customers being profiled and mistreated at financial institutions. The bank's corporate office was forced to respond. They released a statement saying they were deeply concerned by the video and were conducting a thorough investigation. The statement was carefully worded and said nothing of substance, which only made people angrier. Social media erupted with calls to boycott the bank. People posted about their own negative experiences at the same branch and other branches. Former employees came forward anonymously to share stories about the culture of discrimination they had witnessed. The bank's stock price began to drop. Shareholders demanded answers. The corporate office called an emergency meeting. The pressure was mounting, and Maya's phone wouldn't stop buzzing with updates about new developments. 3 days after Maya posted the video, the bank released a second statement. This one was different. They acknowledged that Maya had been subjected to unacceptable treatment at their branch. They announced that 2 employees had been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. They promised comprehensive reviews of their policies and procedures. They announced mandatory diversity and inclusion training for all staff nationwide. They apologized publicly to Maya and to any other customers who had experienced discrimination, but it wasn't enough for many people. Critics pointed out that administrative leave was just paid time off. They questioned whether the training would be meaningful or just checking a box. They demanded to know what specific policy changes would be implemented. They asked how the bank would be held accountable going forward. Maya was invited to appear on morning talk shows, on news programs, on podcasts. Everyone wanted to interview the woman whose simple trip to the bank had sparked a national conversation about racism in financial institutions. At first, Maya said no to everything. She was exhausted and overwhelmed. She just wanted to get back to running her bakeries and living her normal life. But then she started reading the comments from other people, black women who said they had experienced similar treatment but hadn't spoken up because they thought no one would believe them. Young black professionals who said they were afraid to open business accounts because of stories like Maya's. Parents who worried about sending their black children to banks alone because they might be profiled or accused of fraud. Maya realized that her story had become bigger than just what happened to her. It had opened a door for a conversation that needed to happen, and she had a responsibility to walk through that door, even though it was scary and uncomfortable. So she started accepting some of the interview requests. She spoke on local television about her experience. She talked to reporters about the broader patterns of discrimination in banking. She shared her platform with other people who had similar stories. She was careful to stay factual and composed, letting the truth of what happened speak for itself. The pressure on the bank continued to build. Community organizations demanded meetings with bank leadership. Civil rights groups called for investigations by regulatory agencies. Customers closed their accounts in protest. The negative publicity was costing the bank money and reputation. 1 week after the incident, Maya received an email from the bank's CEO. It was longer and more personal than the public statements. He apologized directly to her. He outlined specific steps the bank was taking, including independent audits of their discrimination complaints, new protocols for handling large withdrawals, creation of a customer advocacy office, and partnership with civil rights organizations for comprehensive, anti-bias training. He also informed her that the assistant manager and the teller who had discriminated against her were no longer employed by the bank. They had been terminated after the investigation confirmed that their treatment of Maya violated company policies and federal fair lending laws. The branch manager, while not directly involved in the incident, was being reassigned to a non-customer-facing role because he had failed to create an appropriate culture at his branch. The email ended with an offer. The bank wanted to settle with Maya. They were prepared to offer significant financial compensation for what she had endured. They would also donate a substantial amount to a charity or cause of her choosing. In exchange, they asked that she sign a non-disclosure agreement about the settlement terms, though they did not ask her to stop speaking about what happened or to delete her video. Maya read the email 3 times. She thought about the money and what it could mean for her businesses, her employees, her future. She thought about the donation and what good it could do. But she also thought about the non-disclosure agreement and what it would mean to stay silent about the settlement. Maya sat at her kitchen table with the bank's settlement offer printed out in front of her. She had consulted with 3 different attorneys in the past week, and they all told her the same thing. The offer was generous, probably more than she would win if she took the bank to court. The terms were relatively fair, allowing her to continue speaking about what happened while only keeping the settlement amount confidential. It was by all practical measures a good deal, but it still felt wrong somehow. Maya kept thinking about all the other people who had experienced discrimination at banks but didn't have video evidence, didn't have their story go viral, didn't have the leverage she had. Those people would never get settlements. They would never get apologies. They would just have to live with the hurt and the anger and the knowledge that the system hadn't protected them. She called one of the attorneys back, a black woman named Patricia who had been particularly understanding. "What do you think I should do?" Maya asked, not as my lawyer, but as a person who understands what this means. Patricia was quiet for a moment. "I think you should take the settlement," she finally said. "Not because the money doesn't matter or because you should just move on, but because you've already done something amazing. You spoke up. You shared your story. You forced a major bank to acknowledge its problems and make changes. You've inspired other people to speak up too. Taking the settlement doesn't erase any of that. It just means you get compensation for what you went through, which you absolutely deserve." "But what about everyone else?" Maya asked. "What about all the people who won't get settlements?" "You can help them too," Patricia pointed out. "You said the bank is offering a donation to a cause of your choice. You could direct that money toward organizations fighting against discrimination. You could use your own settlement to support those causes too. You could use your platform to keep talking about these issues. Taking the settlement doesn't mean you have to stop fighting." Maya realized Patricia was right. She called the bank's legal team and negotiated some changes to the settlement terms. She agreed to sign, but only if the bank agreed to make certain commitments public. The bank would have to publish regular reports about their progress on diversity and inclusion. They would have to create an independent review board to handle discrimination complaints. They would have to partner with community organizations in black neighborhoods to provide financial literacy programs and support for black-owned businesses. The bank agreed to all of it. 3 weeks after the incident, Maya signed the settlement. The bank issued another public statement announcing the additional measures they were implementing. Maya received the settlement payment, along with confirmation that a substantial donation had been made to 3 organizations she had selected, all of them focused on fighting discrimination and supporting black entrepreneurs. Maya used part of her settlement money to upgrade equipment at all 3 of her bakeries. She gave bonuses to all her employees as thanks for their patience and support during the difficult weeks. She set aside money for her own future and for expanding her business. And she donated a significant portion to the same organizations the bank had supported, doubling their impact. But even with the settlement completed and the money in her account, Maya found she couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. She started having trouble sleeping. Sometimes she would wake up in the middle of the night, her heart pounding, remembering the look on the teller's face or the moment the police officers walked in. She found herself anxious whenever she needed to go to a bank, even though she had moved her accounts to a different institution. A friend suggested she talk to a therapist, and Maya finally admitted she needed help processing what she had been through. The therapist explained that Maya was experiencing symptoms of trauma. Even though the incident had ended without physical harm, the emotional and psychological impact was real and valid. The humiliation, the fear, the sense of injustice, all of it had left marks that wouldn't just disappear because she had gotten an apology and a settlement. "What happened to you was wrong," the therapist told her during one session, "and no amount of money or public statements can change the fact that it happened. You're allowed to still be angry. You're allowed to still be hurt. Healing doesn't mean forgetting or pretending everything is fine now." Maya found that helpful. She stopped trying to force herself to be okay and started allowing herself to feel whatever she felt. Some days she was angry. Some days she was sad. Some days she felt strong and empowered by how she had handled the situation. Some days she felt defeated by the reminder that no matter how successful she became, her skin color would always make some people see her as suspicious or less than. 6 weeks after the incident, Maya agreed to do a longer interview for a major news magazine. She wanted to talk not just about what happened to her, but about the bigger picture. She talked about the wealth gap between black and white families in America. She talked about how discrimination in banking and lending had been used historically to keep black people from building wealth. She talked about the barriers black entrepreneurs faced in getting loans and financial support. She talked about the importance of representation, of having black people in leadership positions at banks and financial institutions. The interview was published both in print and online. It was shared widely. Maya received messages from people thanking her for speaking out, for using her experience to educate others, for refusing to be silent. She also received continued hateful messages from people who were angry at her for playing the race card or attacking the bank employees. Maya learned to ignore the hate and focus on the positive impact her story was having. Meanwhile, the bank was following through on its commitments. The Independent Review Board was established. The diversity training was rolled out across all branches. The community partnership programs were launched. Reports were published showing the bank's efforts to address discrimination. It wasn't perfect, and there were critics who said it wasn't enough, but it was more than most banks were doing. The two employees who had been fired, the assistant manager and the teller, both struggled after losing their jobs. The assistant manager gave one interview to a local news station where he apologized for his actions, but also tried to defend himself by saying he was just following what he thought was proper procedure. The response online was harsh, with many people pointing out that discrimination often hides behind claims of just following rules. He eventually moved to another state to escape the attention. The teller never spoke publicly about what happened. According to sources, she had difficulty finding new employment because any Google search of her name brought up articles about the incident. Maya felt a complicated mix of emotions about this. Part of her felt the consequences were deserved. These people had hurt her, had tried to humiliate her, had called the police on her for doing nothing wrong. But another part of her felt sad that this moment would define their entire lives, the same way it had affected hers. The branch manager, Richard Morrison, took his reassignment seriously. In his new role away from customer service, he became an advocate within the bank for better training and policies. He reached out to Maya 6 months after the incident to tell her about the changes he was working on, and to thank her for forcing the bank to confront its problems. Maya appreciated the message but didn't respond. She had moved on and didn't feel the need to reassure him or make him feel better about what had happened. As time passed, Maya slowly rebuilt her sense of security and confidence. She continued to run her bakeries successfully. She became more involved in her local business community, speaking at events about entrepreneurship and about overcoming challenges. She joined a support group for black business owners where she could share her experiences and hear from others who understood the unique struggles they faced. A year after the incident, Maya was invited to speak at a banking industry conference about the customer experience and the impact of discrimination. It was strange to stand in front of an audience full of bank executives and employees, but Maya spoke honestly about what she had been through and what it had taught her. She talked about the importance of seeing customers as human beings, not potential criminals. She talked about how unconscious bias could lead to harmful actions even from people who didn't think of themselves as racist. She challenged the audience to think about who they suspected and who they trusted, and whether those judgments were based on real evidence or on stereotypes. The speech was well received, and Maya was offered more opportunities to speak at corporate events and conferences. She accepted some of them, seeing it as a chance to educate and create change from within institutions. But she also made sure to stay grounded in her community, continuing to run her bakeries and support other black business owners. 2 years after the incident, Maya opened a 4th bakery location. At the opening ceremony, she gave a short speech thanking everyone who had supported her business over the years. She didn't mention the bank incident directly, but she talked about resilience and about not letting setbacks define you. She talked about the importance of community and of people standing up for each other. And she talked about hope, about believing that things could get better even when the world seemed determined to knock you down. In the audience that day were many of the people who had supported her during the worst time. The elderly black man from the bank was there, smiling proudly. The woman who had been in line behind her came with her family. Even the attorney who had spoken up was there, having become a friend over the past 2 years. These people, Strangers who had become allies in a moment of crisis had shown Maya that there was still good in the world. But Maya never forgot what happened that Tuesday afternoon at the bank. She couldn't forget, and in some ways she didn't want to. The experience had changed her, had made her more aware of the discrimination that existed all around her, had made her more committed to fighting against it. It had also made her more sympathetic to others who experienced similar treatment, more willing to speak up when she witnessed injustice, more determined to use her success and her platform to create change. The scars remained. Sometimes Maya would see a police car and feel her heart rate spike, remembering the moment those officers walked into the bank. Sometimes she would hear someone question the legitimacy of a black person's money or success, and she would feel the anger rise up fresh and hot. Sometimes she would lie awake at night, thinking about all the times she had been discriminated against throughout her life, all the small and large ways she had been made to feel less than. But she also had victories to remember. She had spoken her truth. She had refused to accept mistreatment quietly. She had forced a major bank to change its policies and practices. She had inspired others to speak up about their own experiences. She had built a successful business despite all the obstacles. She had created jobs and opportunities for others. She had used her pain to educate and create change. Maya learned that healing wasn't about forgetting or getting over what happened. It was about carrying the experience with you, letting it make you stronger and wiser and more compassionate, while not letting it destroy your hope for a better future. It was about acknowledging that the world had real problems, real injustice, real racism, while still believing that change was possible if people were willing to fight for it. The bank incident would always be a part of Maya's story. But it wasn't the whole story. The whole story included her determination, her resilience, her success, her generosity, her courage, and her refusal to be silenced. The whole story was about a woman who faced discrimination and didn't just survive it, but used it as fuel to create change, to help others, to build something meaningful. And that was a story worth telling.